Hello, students of grade 3. We meet again for another new chapter. In today's class, we will be learning from the very first chapter called Storybook. So let's see what are the contents that we'll be learning from this chapter. Firstly, we'll be learning about what makes a story, under which we have subtopics like author, fiction and non-fiction, genre, tale, extract, summary, and important elements of story writing such as introduction, conflict and resolution, plot, and conclusion. So without further delay, let us proceed with the class. Firstly, who is an author? An author is the writer of the story, play, or poem. This author writes stories whether they are based on true facts or even imaginary. An example of an author is J.K. Rowling, the female author who is famously known for her book Harry Potter. So here the author is J.K. Rowling. Next, what is fiction and non-fiction? Fiction means stories created from the author's imagination, whereas non-fiction means stories that are based from facts. For example, we have the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is about a small group of contest winners who get to tour the magical and mysterious chocolate factory. So here we see that this book is something that is imaginary, created by the imagination of the author. Therefore, we refer to this as fiction. On the other hand, we have books like Animals, Rockets, and the Planets. These are books which reveal real-life events, creatures, or something that is true. Therefore, we refer to this as non-fiction because it is all based on factual data. Moving on to the next topic, what is genre? Genre means a category or type of story. It describes the style and focus of the story that you read. Genres gives you ideas about different type of stories. For example, genres like science fiction, where it's all about science and technology. Or maybe even mystery, where we have all different types of mysterious adventures. Or maybe even fantasy, where it all deals with magical powers and superheroes. Or maybe even horror stories, which are very thrilling and scary. So all of these different types of story that we have is what we understand as genre. Now, what is tale? Tale is a synonym for story, meaning that both tale and story are similar or have a related meaning. Likewise, legend, myth, fable, narrative, and chronicle are all synonym for stories. So, we can either call it a story or maybe even a tale because both have similar meanings. Now, what is extract? Extract basically means to take something out or remove something from a larger portion. In a story, extract means a particular sentence or a passage, paragraph that is taken out from a book. For example, we have an extract of a kid's storybook entitled Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So let's read it out and see what is an extract. But when everyone saw Mom, they stopped what they were doing. Mom pulled a bunch of homemade Halloween games out of her bag, and I got a sick feeling in my stomach. I should have known what Mom was up to when I saw her reading the October edition of Family Frolic magazine last night. When Mom pulled out her party games, I figured everyone would just ignore her and go back to having fun. But then, something crazy happened. Here we see that the whole story is not written, but only some few parts or paragraph of the story is mentioned. That means that this is extracted from the main story. That is why we call this an extract. Moving on to the next topic, summary. Now, what do we understand by summary? A summary of a text is a short explanation of the important details of the story. In a summary, you don't repeat all of the information and details of the story because, just like a story with too much detail, this would make a summary very boring. For example, here is a short summary from the story Wizard of Oz. Let's read it. The book I read is about a girl named Dorothy who got stuck in a cyclone. She fell asleep during the cyclone and had a dream. During a journey, she met a scarecrow, a tin man, and a lion. They were all on their way to see the Wizard of Oz. When she woke up, she went outside and the cyclone had stopped, and everything was beautiful. Dorothy was glad to be home again. This example shows how summaries are the main information which are selected and organized so that it is easier for someone else to understand and follow the story. Next topic we have is introduction. Now, what is this introduction? Introduction means the beginning of a story. It should provide enough information about the plot, the characters or settings in a story to get you interested and make you want to read the story. It is important because the beginning of a story should grab the attention of the readers. Now, moving on to another very important topic, that is conflict and resolution. What is conflict and resolution? Conflict in a story means the problem in a story. It is the struggle faced by the main character against the other character, probably the villain in the story. This type of conflict or problem makes the story more interesting. Without it, the story would have no point or even purpose. Resolution means the part where the main problem is resolved or worked out. The resolution put the events and characters in a stable situation, ending the tension of a story. Resolution is typically where the problem is solved and the story ends. So basically, conflict and resolution means the problem in a story and the solution to the particular problem. Another important topic here we have is plot. What does it mean? Plot in simple terms can be understood as the main event in a story, that is, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. The beginning of a story should provide information about the characters and settings of the story. The middle of a story should provide information about the problem that arises in a story and how to find a solution to it. The ending should provide information about the solution to the story and how the problem is resolved so that the story could have a happy ending to it. So for better understanding, let's watch a video explaining plot more briefly.
Story elements, the events. Our learning goal for today says, I can tell about the events in a story. Events are the things that happen in a story, and when you first start talking about them, there are 3 letters that can help you to remember the things you need to speak about. The B, M, E. So when I say, ooh, tell me the B, M, E, this will help you. Go ahead. What are the 3 letters? B, M, E. Okay, let me tell you what those actually stand for. B is for the beginning. The beginning of a story is really important. It does two things. It tells you who are the characters. When you first start reading a story, you don't know who's going to be in the book. So the beginning is important because it introduces the characters for the very first time. And then also it tells you what is the setting. When is the story taking place? And where is the story taking place? As we've learned before, setting is very important. The beginning kind of sets up the story. So for example, if I was reading about my friend Paddington, here's Paddington right there. It's really important to know that he has lots of things that he likes to carry with him. And where's the setting? Well, he lives in a really rainy city, so he's often wearing his raincoat. It's something he's known for. You'll notice it says PB because his first name's Paddington and his last name's Bear. All of those things kind of give me some information about Paddington. And I learned all that in the beginning of the story. M is our next letter, and M is for the middle. The middle of the story is what is happening to the character. What is the character doing? What are they all doing during the bulk of the story? What's going on in the middle? After we've introduced them, they start to go on some kind of adventure usually. And normally, they have a problem that they're trying to solve, and they're going on a little journey to figure out how to solve that problem. For example, my friend Corduroy. In the beginning of the story, we learned all about Corduroy and how he's a toy in a department store. And this little girl wants to come purchase him, but her mom mentions his missing button. Do you see his missing button on his overalls? Perfect. That was the beginning of the story. In the middle of the story, Corduroy goes on a search for his missing button all through the department store at night. His problem is that he doesn't have a button and he can't find one. That's the middle of his story. And finally, E is for the end. In the end, we answer questions like, how did the characters solve the problem? What did they do? And did the characters change at all throughout the story? So for example, this friend, in his story, he wants to be part of a zoo. You learn about him wanting to be part of the zoo in the very beginning, and then in the middle, he shows off all the tricks he can do to prove that he should be part of the zoo. And then in the very end, he solves his problem by actually joining the zoo. All right? He didn't change much throughout the story, but not all characters change a lot. It's really important in the end to think about how did they solve their problems and did they change? Because if they change, normally that's helpful too. Our learning goal for today says, I can tell about the events in a story. And as you're reading a story, I want you to stop and think about the BME, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Did you learn about the characters in the setting in the beginning? Did you think about what was happening to the characters and their problem in the middle? And in the end, how did they solve their problem? Did they change at all? Those are some questions you should be asking yourself, and you should be able to answer as you're trying to tell about the events in a story.
Now getting on to the last topic, that is conclusion. Conclusion means the ending of a story. It is the part where all the problems in a story is solved. It is the last part of the story, that is the end. With this, we come to an end for today's class. Thank you. Stay home and stay safe.